Hello and welcome. Welcome to World Unity Week. Welcome to the Temple of the Heart. My name is Irina Morrison and I'm in Brisbane, Australia. It's a great honor and pleasure to introduce tonight's panel, Practices of Compassion, Global Exploration. And it's always my pleasure to be hosting this event with my colleague and a dear friend, Yanni Maniatis. Yanni, will you tell us where in the world you are? And then we can introduce our panelists.
Thank you, Irina. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you, with the panelists and those of you who are watching. And I presently live in Pennsylvania in the United States. And it's just, again, an honor to be with each one of you. And what I'd like to do now is to allow each of our panelists to just briefly state their names and the tradition they represent and where they are geographically. And then as we proceed, you'll get to know them more as they, give their reflections. And I will be introducing them simply in the order in which that they will be presenting their comments. So I'd like to begin with Pat.
I'm Pat McCabe, Wiakba Najinwi, and I'm coming to you from the land of the Sandia Pueblo in New Mexico in the United States, and I'm from the Dene tradition, adopted into the Lakota tradition.
Thank you very much, Pat. And now, Dr. A.K. Merchant.
Namaste, I'm Dr. A.K. Merchant, member of the Baha'i Faith, living in New Delhi, India. Greetings to all.
Thank you, Dr. Merchant. Thank you for being with us. And next, Deborah Moldo.
Blessings, everyone. I'm Reverend Deborah Moldow. I'm an interfaith minister. I'm director of the Evolutionary Leaders and founder of the Garden of Light, and I live in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico.
Thank you, Deborah. Lama Dobum Tulku.
Hi, everybody, friends. My name is Lama Dobum Tulku, and my tradition is Nalanda tradition of Buddhism, and I live in the state of Haryana, India.
Thank you, Lama Dobum. And now, Dr. Darrell Bryant.
Hi, everyone. I'm Darrell Bryant, a Christian. I've been very involved in the interfaith movement since the early 1980s. So it's kind of my 40th anniversary.
Thank you, Darrell. Let's move now to Audrey Kitagawa.
My name is Audrey Kitagawa. I come from the interfaith tradition, and I am currently in New York City, United States.
Thank you, Audrey.
Salman is back. Salman?
Oh, yes. I think there was some disconnection with the internet. Adab, salam alaikum. This is Haji Sayyid Salman Chishti, Gaddi Nashin, Dargah Ajmer Sharif. I live in Rajasthan, India, serving from last 800 years at the Chishti Dargah in India.
Thank you very much, Salman. Pleasure. Reverend Diane Burke.
Blessings, everyone. My name is Reverend Diane Burke. I represent the interspiritual tradition, and more specifically, A Course in Miracles, and I live in New York City.
Thank you, Diane. And Dr. Dave?
Namaste to everyone. I am Jyotindra Dave. I belong to Swaminarayan Hindu tradition, and I stay at Akshardham, New Delhi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dave. And Dr. Mohinder Singh.
I'm Mohinder Singh from Sikh tradition based in New Delhi, India. Thank you.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to have such an esteemed panel, many of whom I've known for, actually some of whom I've known for 40 years, and some of whom I'm just meeting for the first time. And certainly we all know that that bedrock of all of our traditions is compassion or love. It is as well the wellspring from which all the good kind of just flows. And so given that this is part of World Unity Week, this panel, it seemed very appropriate to just speak of that which unifies us all, that heart of the beloved, however one names her, him, it, that brings us together, that allows us to remember who we really are. And then I would, to kind of just frame this a little further, there are two quotes I would like to just read that could help frame our reflections and discussions that we're going to have today. And one is something Thomas Merton wrote. And it is thus: when we serve others, we are fulfilling our evolutionary and as well our personal purpose. Compassion is a part of the fundamental fabric of the larger intelligence of creation, which is an evolutionary power striving always for a greater complexity, cooperation, and higher consciousness. Compassionate and altruistic tendencies such as collaboration, caring, inclusion, and connection, harmony, and love are an evolutionary manifestation. So we are all part of that evolutionary manifestation, that new human that is being birthed, that is remembering who she and he are. And then just one last quote, and turn this over to our wonderful panelists. And this is from His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And he wrote, "When we are motivated by compassion and wisdom, the results of our actions benefit everyone, and not just our individual selves or some immediate convenience. When we are able to recognize and forgive ignorant actions of the past, we gain strength to constructively solve the problems of the present." So when we organized this panel, when Irina and I brought this panel together, we came up with this theme, and we also offered 4 questions to our panelists to reflect upon. And so what we'll do now is allow each of them to reflect on one of those questions for 3 or 4 minutes. And then after they've each had the opportunity to do that, they'll all come back again for a further concluding reflection on what they've heard or anything they would like to add to what they've already said. So the first question is, please comment on how, from your spiritual perspective, you practice compassion in your personal life, personally. And Pat McCabe has offered to give her reflections on that. So I'd like to turn it over to Pat now. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you so much. Very honored to be here. So I'll say Yate, greetings to all again. I like this question because it's helping me to see my tradition in a little bit more clarity. And so I want to say that in my tradition, the Dene tradition, we see ourselves as coming from original beauty. That is the baseline of life and our existence, original beauty. And so what this question made me think about is how, my clan grandfather used to say, "Here we are, holy earth surface walkers." dazzled by creation, coming upon temptation. So he saw this as our state. This is pre-colonization. This is just humans being on Earth, right? And so I was thinking about our way of healing. And so when somebody forgets their original beauty, when someone gets lost in that temptation or being dazzled by creation, we have a way of bringing each other back to that place. And so it's assumed that we are original beauty. And so the way that we bring people back to health and harmony, mentally, emotionally, and also physically, is to have the whole community come together. And we sing the original songs of the perfection of creation, basically. And so it's saying that every one of us actually has that baseline, and that we have an opportunity to always return to it. And so I feel like that's such a compassionate view of humanity and of each other. And then I was also adopted into the Lakota spiritual tradition, and I was thinking about that too this morning, and thinking, you know, this practice of giving these names, and many traditions have this. So I see it as, you know, I say I'm Wiyakpa Najinwin, and oftentimes in modern world I'm the only one given such a name. But imagine being in a community where each person is given a very profound spiritual name. And that name comes from an event that may have happened to you that everybody witnessed, an encounter that you had with all of our relatives, our elders on the earth. And so everybody recognizes that this very special thing happened to you. And so every time someone speaks your name, they're reinforcing that sense of, yes, I have a place here. I have a special place here, I'm going to say. But special, not more special than anybody else, but special among all of the specialness that each one of us is. And all of us together are bringing a medicine. And I guess with each generation, a different constellation of medicines that all work together to serve life, light, and love. And then I guess just finally what I thought of is, you know, I've been saying that right now I feel like is the time for radical self-love and radical self-acceptance, because all of our human systems, we're seeing the faults in them. And so much of our identities have been tied up in these systems: education, health systems, economic systems. And so as we're watching them begin to fail, I feel like we're being pointed back to ourselves. What is inherent in us as being this holy earth surface walker? And I feel like the answer for me right now is to really examine myself and therefore others with radical self-love and radical self-acceptance. So I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Pat. Irina, will you introduce question number 2?
Yes, the question number 2 is, how from your spiritual perspective you practice compassion in your relationships with others and the natural world? And I will invite Dr. Merchant.
Once again, loving greetings to all. Very grateful to be part of this World Unity Week. Distinguished friends, from the Baha'i perspective, first of all, we always are reminded what Baha'u'llah said. Blessed are they who hold fast to the cord of compassion and kindness and are detached from animosity and hatred. He proclaimed this many, many decades ago, a century and a half. Compassion in action in our family, at our workplace, and our opportunities for service in the community and society actually tells us that today we live in a world where everybody is interconnected. The web of life in these critical times demands compassion. never before as much as today. Because what the whole world needs today is not mere palliative or ad hoc remedy consisting of some superficial or cosmetic adjustments. What we need is real compassion in action. So from the Baha'i perspective, we believe that human beings are organic with the rest of the world. And our human heart is what beats at every occasion when there is something sad, something disturbing, something uncomfortable. Then compassion can be one remedy which, along with several other virtues, can bring about a fundamental and far-reaching change. Because human beings are organic with the world. Our inner life molds the environment and it's itself very deeply affected by it. The one acts upon the other, and every abiding change in the life of the human beings is a result of these mutual reactions. So we have seen how this global catastrophe of the health crisis caused by COVID-19 has so rudely derailed every facet of our existence on this planet. And the best way is to go deep into the roots of human virtues, deep into what makes us human. And as we discover one by one these eternal virtues, compassion surely shines out. And compassion reminds us that when brought into action, whether it be with our family members, whether they be elders to us or children, or at our workplace, it can surely smoothen out. It can really bring about a transformation. It can touch the core of the hearts of everyone. And the more we practice it, the more wonderful results will emanate. So I believe in my personal life, as a member of the Baha'i community, I've seen it in action, whether working with small children, whether working with the problems of the youth, or whether with adults in our study circle. We also have managed to organize during these COVID times, large number of groups of families. And the prayers that we offer are all anchored upon virtues of compassion, loving kindness, generosity, thinking about the others before we think of ourselves. So compassion to me also reminds us very powerfully the golden rule. So as was the introduction made, I have seen that compassion is an antidote and provides a lot of healing when there is sadness, misery, grief, pain, and suffering and sorrow. So my personal life, I can vouch that I have found compassion to be a very powerful remedy to a whole range of problems. So I once again thank the organizers and delighted to be part of this World Unity Week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Merchant. Thank you so much. Next, we'll invite Lama Dobum to answer the same question.
Such a great pleasure to meet all of you, and many of you are known to me, and I am known to them, to you, for many, many years. And I think it was in 2016, we had a beautiful seminar in Hyderabad in India with the help of Professor Darrell Bryan. And Yanni was there. And so I'm happy to be part of this World Unity Week. Let me say it this way, compassion we are talking about. Compassion is the most beautiful word in the world. It's the most beautiful sound. We all know the compassion, the karuna, the Mahakaruna, Swarup, Merciful One, Rahim, Rahman. All these are different names of one divinity. So we all agree to that. Now, what is compassion? There can be a little bit of different ways of explaining it. But basically, compassion means caring for others, not being selfish, motivated one. Whatever I do, whatever I say, whatever I think, my motive, my attitude is selfish one, then there is no compassion. And compassion is actually the most important step to bodhicitta, all compassionate altruism. I often say to my friends, you know, some people have the habit, I don't care. I ask them, please don't say, please change that into I don't mind, which means I don't mind, you know, going through some suffering for the sake of benefiting others, instead of saying I don't care. If you don't care, then there's no compassion. If you don't care what happens to your neighbor, what happens to your town, state, country, or, you know, the earth, then we can almost say you have no right to talk about compassion. So that is the main thing. I think it's time is up. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Lama
you,
Dogen.
dear Lama. Thank you so much. I will now invite our dear Deborah Moldo to answer the same question. Go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Irina and Yanni, for raising this beautiful topic of compassion and giving us the chance to really ponder it. I first learned about compassion when I was working in Tibetan culture in the 1980s from a master of compassion, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I've always treasured this beautiful concept. But now, many years later, I find myself living in a wonderful town in Mexico where I found another teacher, and it is a much harsher teacher. So the town I live in, San Miguel de Allende, is quite beautiful, and there are many musicians and artists living here, as well as a rich indigenous culture. And we expats who are lucky enough to be here, all that children who are trying to sell us seeds and candies that we don't really want, but we can't resist helping out. And we have little old ladies who sit still, absolutely still, in one spot on the sidewalk all day long, just with their hand or their cup out to receive our small coins. And I always hope I have some coins in my pocket to give, because my heart goes out to them. I know that in their lives, they haven't enjoyed the many benefits that I have, and I want to share with them, and they bring forth compassion in me, and I'm grateful for that. But there's one other beggar on our streets. She's a middle-aged woman, and she stands in front of the pharmacy I pass every day, not with her hand out, humbly requesting our alms. No, she walks right up to us. She's very, she's thin, and she has a perpetual scowl on her face. She's very hard looking. And she is aggressive in demanding our help. I always hope that I have some coins to give her so that I can quickly put by, because I don't want to look into her face and to really understand her suffering. But I know that the compassion that I have for her is tinged with pity, and that separates me from her. And my spiritual path tells me that what I really need to do is to see her, to know her, and to look at her through the eyes of love. This is what makes her my teacher. And every day I have that opportunity to love her. And yesterday, for the first time, because of this question that we were asked to speak to, I asked her her name. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Wow. Thank you so much, Deborah. That's, wow, amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for bringing everyday life compassion in action to this panel. So much beauty in that, so much beauty. Thank you. Okay, we shall now move to the question number 3. And that question calls us to comment on how, from your spiritual perspective, you practice compassion in your compassionate action and service in the world. And I will invite Dr. Daryl Bryant to start with the comments on this question.
Thank you, Irina. It's a pleasure for me to be here. And already I've heard things that I did not know. And I've learned something more about compassion. And that's been the story for me over these last 40 years. This has been for me a transforming journey. And just to give you one example, in the mid 1980s, I was part of a committee putting together a conference, and Dobum Tulku was also on that committee. And at the end of the evening, I said to him, let's go play a game of pool. And he said, okay. He said, I've never played that. And I said, well, it's easy. And we went and we shot a game of pool. And I had to tell him that he had to hold the stick right when he put it on the ground. And he even made one or two shots. And we were then walking back to our rooms, and he said to me, he said, so when you meditate with images or without images? And I said, meditate? What's that all about? I don't meditate. And when I got home, I decided I had to find out something about this and began to do and to practice meditation. And that's just one little example of how this movement we call interfaith has impacted me and transfigured me. And it led to my changing my approach to teaching about the world's religions. I felt that the most important thing I could do would be to introduce my students to people in the living traditions, not my talking about them, not our reading books about them, but actually meeting them. And so I arranged to have a semester of study abroad. And I would take 15 students and we would go to India, rent a van or bus, small bus, and travel from one religious community to another in North India and then in South India. And it was unbelievable the grace and generosity with which we were received at every place we went to. Hindu, Muslim, Jain, Christian, Buddhist. We touched all the bases. And at the end of the semester, I would always get a booklet from the class saying thank you and saying this has been the most amazing 3 months in my life. And it just tells you something about the magic of coming to know those others in all the different traditions with whom we share this common and beloved planet. And we need to be open to one another, learn from one another, and work together with one another in order to meet the huge, huge challenges that face us in this moment of our history. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Daryl. Lovely.
Thank you. I will now invite Salman Chishti to comment on question 3 as well.
Salam, greetings. And as we say, Bismillah ir-Rahman ir-Rahim. This is how we, in the Islamic spiritual tradition, we enter the world and we leave the world. And the virtues of compassionate resonate from this very words from our childhood, which has been passed on from generation to generation. When we say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it resonates as we begin with the name of Allah, who is the most compassionate and most merciful. As the journey commands us to fulfill the purpose of our own creation, with this sacred trust which has been passed on, we walk across from Ajmer Dargah Sharif. It's been a tradition from last 800 years. And since 2006, when my father, Rahmatullah Alayhi, passed away, and being the eldest son, although at a very young age of 22, this sacred trust was passed on to us. And since that day, I had made this honest intention at the courtyard, the blessed Sufi courtyard of Khaja Moinuddin Chishti, Gharib Nawaz. Gharib Nawaz translates as somebody who took care of the poor, the downtrodden, the strangers. And since then, it's not only Ajmer Sharif or Rajasthan or India, it's truly a journey which has enabled us to serve in all the directions around the world. So this particular question really resonated along with, of course, all the other questions which were sent by Irina and the Unity Earth family. And when I look at about my own children, and the first thing that we do in the morning when we wake up, and my younger one, Summer, she's about 3.5 years old, Sirhan, she's about 1. So the first thing that they recite is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So there is so much of virtue, so much of compassionate understanding. And this is what we pledge ourselves when we are in the Dargah as well, that people from all faith are coming to the Ajmer Dargah Sharif. And from our childhood, we have been asked only to ask a single question if you need arise to ask a question to people who are coming to the Dargah. Don't ask their name, their religion, their origin, where they come from, their language, their nationality. If only one thing you need to ask is, how can we serve you? This is an important aspect from our elders that we have been got, that wherever you travel and wherever you represent these sacred traditions that have been entrusted to you, just ask one question, that how can we serve you? If you have been blessed with the resources of the world to help the needy, the poor, the downtrodden, go ahead and help them. If not, you don't have those resources, just raise these two hands. These two hands has been blessed with the greatest miracle to all humanity, that with these two hands, raise these two hands in front of the Lord, the Creator, the Divine, and pray that their needs who come to you, but you cannot, due to the worldly lack of resources or the worldly shortcomings, you cannot fulfill those obligations or those requests. So you pray to the Divine that may their need, may their requirement be fulfilled. So with this sacred trust, when we walk across, and it's not something that we plan, that this is how our life is going to be. It is the divine plan that we try to just walk upon this path. And when you do that with complete submission, with humbleness, then the Divine Almighty opens those roads for you to serve beyond your own imagination. And being with Unity Earth family is a clear sign, along with all the blessed traditions from the 4 directions of the world, the 7 continents of a planet Earth, that we have been blessed as a global way to serve people from all walk of life, all faith perspectives, from each race, region of our planet Earth. I think that is the greatest gift is bestowed upon us when we truly believe in humble submission and accepting the most compassionate who has created us for a very important reason and a purpose of our life. If we are unable to do that, I have seen along a lot of people who are into the faith tradition, my own cousins or people that we interact, if we are not being able to align ourselves with the purpose of our own creation, no matter how well we are doing into this world or no matter how many titles that are conferred upon us, we will not be able to serve the purpose of our creation. So with Unity Earth family here and all the elders who have been a source of light and guidance to us, we extend our prayers and gratitude to this humble Unity Earth platform and the magnanimous Unity Earth Week, which is just incumbent upon us, that inshallah with this noble intention, that all the revered elders have been sharing their own personal experience. Just like, it's so amazing to hear Reverend Deborah, that how she just approached a child and asked the name and that brought the smile. And this is the human virtue. And these are the real elements of compassionate. Not something really big or like a mountain load of thing that we have to do. It's just that human smile with one word, touching the heart. And that touch leads us to the most compassionate. We pray that we all, our journey of returning towards the most compassionate, put us on the path of compassion and serving, inshallah. Greeting of peace and salam to all of you, and we continue to serve. Thank you.
Salam, dear
Thank-
Salman. Salam. Thank you for sharing. We do have one more panelist to share their comments for the question number 3, and that's Audrey Kitagawa. I would love to acknowledge the support that Audrey and her organization, International Academy for Multicultural Cooperation, have extended to World Unity Week, and they are co-sponsors of the World Unity Week. Audrey, please go ahead and share your comments.
Thank you so much, Irina. And thank you all for this privilege to share on compassion and specifically compassionate service and action in the world, which informs my spiritual perspective and practice. And what is compassion? And Tulku Dombum very kindly explained. And, compassion is really having sympathetic concern for the suffering and misfortune of others. And it speaks to our ability to really care and feel for others. But more than that, our call now is to action and to become that expression of compassion and caring by whatever service we can undertake and implement to help others in need. As the environmental challenges increase with water shortages, drought, fires, floods, hurricanes, and more natural disasters, there will be many people forced to flee their homes to seek water, food, and security elsewhere. Our governments may not be able to provide needed services, and this is where the world will need to look to civil society to step up to the plate and help those in need. And who is civil society? Civil society is each and every one of us in the community of people, in the community of all sentient beings. And communities of faith have long expressed the values of their sacred teachings in calls to action to help those in need. And this aspect of selfless service, or in Sanskrit, seva, is an important spiritual practice to help deepen ourselves to become better people and to help us to drop selfishness and to curb our acquisitive base nature, where we strive to acquire for ourselves and even sometimes at the expense of others. Selfless service does not look for any return or self-aggrandizement, but only to help others in need. Since leaving my law practice many years ago, everything that I do is a free gift of service, and there is no charge. You know, my spiritual mother said, the greatest gifts from God are free: the sun, the moon, the air. She never charged for the countless hours that she spent with us, giving an endless stream of spiritual food and the most profound, beautiful, spontaneous expositions on the divine that one could ever have the privilege to hear. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, when we practice compassion, we will have more strength, peace, and joy, and this will transfer to everyone with whom we associate. On a deep level, there is a vibratory frequency which we emanate, and that is sharing the essence of oneness, that the suffering of another is our suffering, and the happiness of another is our happiness. And my beautiful spiritual mother often said, your joy is my joy. And this is the one consciousness from which she was speaking. In Buddhism and in most faith traditions, you know, we find in the Tibetan Buddhism, especially, one of the most authoritative texts on the Bodhisattva path, or the path of an enlightened being. And in this 8th section on meditative concentration on compassion, it goes as follows. Strive at first to meditate upon the sameness of yourself and others. In joy and sorrow, all are equal. Thus be guardian of all as of yourself. The hand and other limbs are many and distinct, but all are one. Likewise, different beings in their joys and sorrow are like me, all one in wanting happiness. This pain of mine does not afflict or cause discomfort on another's body, and yet this pain is hard for me to bear because I cling and take it for my own. And other beings' pain I do not feel, and yet because I take them for myself, their suffering is mine and therefore hard to bear. And therefore I'll dispel the pain of others, for it is simply pain just like my own. And others I will aid and benefit, for they are living beings like my body. Since I and other beings both in wanting happiness are equal and alike, what difference is there to distinguish us, that I should strive to have my bliss alone? Thank you so much for allowing me the privilege to share.
Lovely. Thank you, Audrey.
Thank you, Audrey. Yanni, will you take us into the question number 4?
Yes. So for our final question, we have 3 more panelists. And the question is, please comment on how compassion is evidenced in and through your spiritual tradition. And I'd like to ask Reverend Diane Burke to share first.
Thank you, Yanni and Irina. Thank you to all of the panelists. This has been so incredibly rich and illuminating and heart-opening so far. I consider my spiritual path and perspective to be interspirituality, which is a term Brother Wayne Teasdale coined to point specifically to the sharing of the mystical treasures of all of the world's religions and traditions that allow us to meet one another at the deepest levels of knowing our interconnectedness and unity. Brother Wayne wrote about what he described as 9 elements of mature universal spirituality found in mature practitioners of every tradition beyond any cultural differences, theological differences, differences of language and expression. And as I reflected on those 9 elements, I also recognize that they are 9 ways of practicing and expressing compassion. So I wanted to go through those with you quickly. The first is actualizing and living from a full moral and ethical capacity. All ethical systems are based on a commitment to do no harm. And compassion in its fullest sense is both a commitment to alleviate suffering when we become aware of it, and also not to add to suffering by doing harm to others, to the planet, to ourselves. The second element is living in solidarity and harmony with all living beings. This is a recognition that all sentient beings, all life, and even as the indigenous traditions would tell us, beings that we may think of as inanimate have dignity and have gifts that they bring to this life that we share. And recognizing the value and contribution of all of those lives, and recognizing that all of our well-being is necessary for the well-being of any one of us, is an expression of compassion and unity. The third element is living a life of deep nonviolence. My favorite definition of nonviolence goes far beyond simply refraining from acts of physical violence, and has been described as, in any situation, acting in a way that recognizes and uplifts the dignity of every soul involved in that situation. The fourth element is cultivating and living from true humility. Humility grows out of an ability to be deeply honest with ourselves, both in terms of our shortcomings, but also very importantly, in terms of the gifts and the strengths we bring to life and to the lives of other people. Humility also recognizes, as Pat said in her remarks earlier, that everyone is special, not in the sense of more special than someone else, but in the sense of having unique gifts that they bring. And to live with humility is to both recognize and honor the gifts that you bring, and also to look for and recognize and honor the gifts of others. The fifth element is embracing a regular spiritual practice. And that means being committed daily to engage in whatever practices allow you to connect with divinity, to connect with your own highest nature, to, as Salman said, to connect with and touch into the most merciful and compassionate and generous and loving one. And so to commit that every day I will engage in practice that help me to align with that so that I can be an expression of that into the world. The sixth element is mature self-knowledge. And that means both coming to know our true nature, our true self, the highest expression of our spiritual and divine nature. And it also means coming to honestly look at and acknowledge and own our own shadow so that we don't project our shadow onto the world and onto others and then feel justified in judging and attacking and blaming them. The next element is living a life of simplicity. And that has two dimensions, both inner simplicity, which is always keeping in mind what is truly important, and living our lives and making our decisions and choices based on what truly matters and not on things that are less than that. And also recognizing that if we use more of the world's resources than we actually need, we are taking from others and creating harm. So living a life of simplicity is not adding to the suffering in the world, and in that sense, expressing compassion. The next element is engaging in selfless service. And Audrey already described that so beautifully and so powerfully. I don't think I need to say anything more about that. And the final element, which I think is so important for us in this time, is embodying the prophetic voice. Part of what that means is that we have a responsibility to not only do what we can to help alleviate suffering on a personal and individual level, but to recognize that so many of the social structures and systems that we have created themselves are sources of harm and sources of injustice, and to be willing to stand up and be heard, calling out those places that injustice has been formalized into institutions and social systems, and standing for the dismantling of those oppressive systems is also a powerful and necessary expression of compassion in our time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane, for that roadmap of compassion. And next, we'll have Dr. Dave. And Dr. Dave has a PowerPoint with some audio that he would like to share with us. And I'm going to let him now just kind of share just briefly a little introduction to what he'll be sharing with us, and then we'll watch the video.
Thank you. I am very thankful. Namaste to everyone. And friends, you know, I belong to Swaminarayan Hindu tradition, and that tradition is called Sanatana, and Sanatana means everlasting. It is everlasting because, you know, it believes basically in the statement that the whole world, you know, belongs to the same nest. And therefore, you know, we have to not only care for others, but we have to suffer from them. If they are suffering, we have to suffer the same pain. And friends, you know, therefore there is simple statement which says, Sarve yatra sukhina santu, sarve santu niramayaha. Let everybody be happy. But friends, you know, what happens, you know, when you come into great difficulties. When somebody attacks you and somebody, with the purpose of killing all innocent people, can you have the compassion for them? Can you say that, no, they were misguided, I don't want to punish them. I want to show you a small video of the attack on Akshardham, one of the most beautiful holy place of Hinduism, and the response given by my teacher to all the people. Let's go through that.
Gunmen have stormed a Hindu temple in India, killing at least 30 people and wounding dozens more. Indian Army commandos have been sent in to try to end the siege.
A place of prayer, now scene of chaos and bloodshed. Hundreds of worshippers were inside in one of India's most important Hindu temples when gunmen seized control. Many became hostages, others fled for their lives.
The terrorists came in a car and had AK-47s and hand grenades. They jumped the fence to get inside the temple. Initial reports suggested that they were wearing uniforms, but the Home Minister has confirmed after talking to some of the priests inside the temple that they were in fact in plain clothes.
Ambulances lined up at the gate, ferrying the injured, while at least 500 commandos of the CRPF, BSF and SRP moved into the temple premises. Exchange of gunfire started within the next hour as commandos started their operation from two fronts, one at the front gate, another at the back gate, in order to squeeze the terrorists into one spot. But the terrorists kept changing their location. And as dawn broke, NSG commandos moved in for the final assault surrounding the complex, while state commandos took positions on top of the building. The operation was over in the next 15 minutes. The main priority, not to damage the temple building.
Friends, when the incident, was told to my teacher, he said that, we must pray for everybody and we must not accuse anybody, even though we know who were the people, from which religion they came, and went on, praying and giving the statement to everyone. When the whole world wanted to have his interview, he said the same thing. We must keep calm and quiet. We must pray to God that, these kind of incidents don't happen, because he was worried that if one simple, statement goes wrong, if somebody says an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth, the whole world will become toothless and eyeless. He did not want any such thing. And therefore, he went on praying. Next slide, please. He went on, calling on everyone who was in the hospital, giving him financial help, giving him, consolation, telling his, family, don't worry, we will try to help you as best as we can. Next slide, please. And when, there was a huge peace assembly, he requested, all the politicians, to sit in the audience so that nobody, gives the statement which will again, bring this kind of incidents, again. So let there be only peace assembly and let there be only prayers that such incidents do not happen. Next slide, please. He went, to all the Muslim friends. Muslim friends came to, him, and he said, please don't worry. We are not going to take any action. We are not going to name everybody. We are just saying that, whatever happened is very, very bad, but we are not going to accuse anybody. And, whether they were the Muslims or the Sikhs or others, he prayed. Not only he prayed, we gave, huge amount of monetary help to the people who were the victims. More than 35, 40 people died and 100 were injured and remained in the hospital for a long time, but not a single word. Friends, this is compassion. Compassion is not only, to say that, it is, we should take, the actions and we should be very careful and this. Please remember what Jesus Christ said when he was crucified. Father, forgive them because they do not know what they do. And not only that, 2000 years ago, after 2000 years, Anne Frank, a Jewish girl in the Nazi camp, what did she say? They said, I still believe that there are good people in the world. It is in the Anne Frank's diary. Friends, this tradition has continued over a period of time. And compassion is when we are in difficulty and something happens to us, even at that time, we show sympathy and cooperation so that, you know, such incidents do not happen further. As I said, you know, if somebody had made some wrong statement, to take the revenge, it would have resulted in huge communal riots in India. Next slide, please. This is the statement of my teacher.
ગુજરાતમાં ભારતમાં ક્યાંય પણ અશાંતિ કોઈ પણ જાતની ન થાય અને દરેક જીવનમાં શાંતિ રાખે એવી પણ અમારી એક અપીલ અને પ્રાર્થના અમે કરેલી છે. કારણ કે આ વખત જે થવાનું છે થયું છે તો એનો ઉકેલ તો ભગવાન જ લાવનાર છે. અમારે ભગવાનમાં શ્રદ્ધા છે કે ભગવાન છે એ દરેક એનો ન્યાય આપે છે. એ વહેલો મોડનો ન્યાય ભગવાન આપશે અને જે કંઈ આપણા ભારત ઉપર આતંકવાદની જે વાત છે એનું નિરાકરણ પણ એ કરશે એવી અમારી ભાવના છે. અને એ ભાવનાથી અમે ભગવાન ઉપર એનો ન્યાય ભગવાન પર એનું જે કાર્ય છોડે છે અને એટલા માટે અમે દરેક ભાઈઓને ગુજરાતની પ્રજા ભારતની પ્રજાને એક જ અપીલ કરી છે કે ક્યારેય આ પ્રસંગ આ નિમિત્તે કોઈ જાતનો કોઈ ઉગ્રતા ના આવી જાય અને દરેક દુઃખને શાંતિ ઊભી ના થાય કે દરેક આ પ્રસંગે પોતે ધ્યાનમાં રાખી અને ભગવાનને પ્રાર્થના કરે.
Friends, you know, this is what I feel, that when you want to put compassion into action, it may come a time that you may have to suffer, your organization may have to suffer. We suffered a lot, but we wanted to show to the world that because of two terrorists, we cannot blame entire community which believes in some other religion. Friends, I want to again request you to study history. Why in India there was no crusade? Why? Because, you know, it was put into the mind of great teachers that, you know, we have to understand that sometimes due to some reason, you know, people may take an action which may be violent, but you should not give the answer of violence by violence. Try to understand and try to find out the ways and means by which you can prevent it in the future. After the attack on Akshardham in Gandhinagar, in Akshardham, Delhi, there is very systematic, you know, precautions so that such things do not happen. People are properly checked, you know, they are not allowed to carry any weapons, they are not even allowed to carry the mobiles because mobile also can be used as a weapon. So we are hopeful that when you give this kind of message through your compassion, that time will come when people will really love. And friends, I will like to tell you that my organization has got a special favor from the ruler of Abu Dhabi to have a place of religion, a Hindu temple in Abu Dhabi, for which the ruler gave the land and all the facilities. So something like this can happen if you can, you know, take into stride these tragedies in your life also, because the life is not consisting only of comedies and pleasure. It consists of tragedies also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dave. That was very powerful. Thank you. And we'd like now to go to Dr. Mohinder Singh.
Well, friends, let me talk of compassion from my tradition. In fact, compassion is part of my heritage. The founder, Guru Nanak, was born in 1469. When he grew up, his father gave him 20 rupees, Indian rupees, and asked him to start some business. A normal person will make 30 or 40 out of 20 by business. What he did, from his village, he went to the city. On the way, he saw some sadhus. You understand sadhus, mendicants? They were hungry for the last few days. He went to the city, brought delicious food, and served all of them. When he returned home, his father asked me, "Young man, what have you done?" He said, "I've done most profitable business." And he got a slap. What business? He says, sadhus were hungry. I purchased good food and fed all of them, so I'm happy. And to my mind, this is the investment that Guru Nanak made, which is getting us dividends. Sikhs everywhere, they are offering community meals called langar. And the Sikh Gurdwaras have a tradition that they must provide three basic things when you go to a Sikh temple: food to eat and place to rest for at least 3 nights. In case they are women, they have to give them protection, no molestation in the Gurdwara. And this has become a tradition that whether the Sikhs are in India or abroad, they have to do this. And recently, I mean, we know this, when in Syria there was war, the Sikh volunteers, they distributed food and medicine, unmindful of being caught in the volley of fire. And recently in New York, Sikh Gurdwara distributed lunch packets, and the grateful citizens named the street as Punjab Avenue. So that is the investment of 20 rupees done by Guru Nanak. Had he made 40 rupees, this compassion would not have been known to us. Second example is from our 10th Guru, Gobind Singh. You know, there was fight with Sikhs and the Mughal rulers. There was a volunteer called Bhai Kanhaiya. His job was to serve drinking water to the injured people. So he started serving drinking water both to his own camp and also to the enemy camp. There was a complaint to the Guru, look, here is a Sikh volunteer who is giving water to the enemies and they get revived quickly after drinking water. Guru asked him to explain. He said, sir, I see you, Guru Gobind Singh, in every eye, whether it's a Muslim eye or a Sikh eye, I see no difference because they're all children of one God. The Guru was pleased. He gave him first aid box. He says, when you are serving water, also do their basic sort of medical needs. Third is small incident I would like to share from my mother, from my family. Now I was born in what is now Pakistan. In those days, the wheat was in plenty. We had our own fields. So wheat, rice, pulses, milk, everything in plenty. No carpets, no sofa set, no color TVs, no cars, but food in plenty. So my mother would make a lot of food, and any visitor to the village had to be fed. This was a part of our tradition. It's called Rahatnama. The Sikh code of conduct says when a guest, known or unknown person comes during lunchtime, feed him first before you eat yourself. So when I grew up, I used to fight my mother. What is this? You are serving unknown. He says, young boy, you should read the Sikh Rahatnama, Sikh code of conduct. Everyone has to be fed. And then she'll make extra chapati, you all understand. One for the village priest, Sikh priest, one for the Hindu priest, and one extra for the birds. That was the compassion from my tradition. And then we believe Dana Pani Guru Ka, tell Seva Sikhan Di. The food belongs to the Mother Earth. Where does it come from? Not from my fridge. It's a Mother Earth. The indigenous people know it better than me. Food comes from the Mother Earth. And serving food to needy is your privilege. You are lucky that you have been given food to serve the poor. That is the compassion in my tradition. And I'll end by a simple one line of prayer for peace from Guru Granth Sahib, the sixth scripture. Jagat Jalanda Rakhla Apni Kirpa Dhar Jit Dware Ubre Titte Le Ubar. O Lord, this word is burning. Show thy mercy, thy grace. Save this word through whatever door thou can. We don't say it's the only Sikh way which can save. No. It's God's mercy. He can save it in any way he wants. So this is our prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohinder, Dr. Singh. That was beautiful. And thank you all. This has been so enriching in the heart and just so beautiful. We have gone beyond our time already. And what I would like to suggest that we do here, and I know you all probably have an additional comment you may want to make, but given the time frame that we've kind of gone over, I would like to ask if there are perhaps maybe up to 3 people who feel they would like to make a comment. And I will, if you were to raise your hand physically, if you wish to comment, Lama Dobum and Pat and Deborah, and those are the first 3 I saw. And maybe I will continue beyond that. I have a feeling we will. So, but if you, because this is too rich and we want more here. So forget what I just said. We will continue, but in the order I just suggested. But if you could keep your comments as brief as possible and from the heart. Okay, Lama Dobum, you'd have to unmute yourself. Yes, okay.
I've learned many things. I've learned things from everybody in the panel. And I would like to make special mention of Haji Syed Salman Chishti's talk. He said when they give the community service, when they make offering to the community, they don't ask which community you belong to, from which tradition you came, but whoever approaches, you serve them food or whatever it is. So that is very, it's not something we are hearing this for the first time, but the way he's described it's very convincing. And I felt I must welcome, and we all should try to follow that kind of action, because, you know, the compassion means unbiased attitude. Your love, your care, your kindness goes equal to everybody. So that is compassion, karuna, mahakaruna, if you like. And I must also say that I learned how to correctly pronounce this Arabian word, you know, Rahman, Rahim. So I must practice how to pronounce Rahim and Rahman and all that. that is one thing. And then Diana Burke also said, you know, very practical things, especially the definition of the nonviolence is not just, you know, harming others. If you look around, human community, animals, birds, marine creatures, maybe, I don't know, the rabbits, they don't go around hunting, you know. So in a way, that's nonviolence. But here we are talking special nonviolence, not only avoiding harming, but with a sense of caring, with a sense of, you know, attitude that the living beings we are dealing with, or you know, the creatures, the Mother Earth, and everything, we take some care according to your capacity. You cannot save the whole by one action. That's true. But on the whole, I've learned many things. So yeah,
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your reflections. Pat had her hand up next, and she also has to leave in a few minutes. So Pat, if you'd like to offer your comment, reflection.
Thank you. I raised my hand. I was so bold to raise my hand and speak again in this illustrious company because I want to point out nobody chose the first question. Nobody wanted to talk about self-compassion and personal compassion because our traditions really turn us outward, don't they? Mine as well. So it's a little bit of a challenge. So I had to be a little bit creative with it. But I wanted to just say a couple words. One, I was thinking that, as was said, you know, the teacher of compassion for me is this Mother Earth. How compassionate she is with us. How compassionate she is with us and all of our learning on this very long journey of humanity so far. And then I wanted to say that I was thinking about, you know, we have this word khojo, which is often translated as beauty. It's in Dene Pesad, our Dene language, and but really it's talking about beauty in the sense of harmony, in the sense of health, vitality, right mind, right heart, right body, right spirit, and such. And so I was thinking, just as I was listening to everybody, that, you know, what my spiritual guides caution me against is self-denial and self-sacrifice to an unbalanced degree. And because our religions turn us out from ourselves so much, our spiritual practices from so many turn us out, that they really caution me against this. And I was thinking that, you know, if you see yourself as as the possibility of being original beauty and harmony and vitality, then you have no need to deny yourself as being something that has to be changed and forget, you know, our terrible human nature so that we can try to belong. So this is where the philosophy of original beauty is a little bit different than some traditions that way. And I was thinking, you know, so if you see yourself as being part of harmony, you don't have to self-deny. right? And so, and then the final thing that I wanted to add here is, you know, there's this idea, in Christianity, they say, love thy neighbor as thyself. And I've been really hearing that in a really different way lately. So what if I can't love my neighbor any more than I can love myself? So if I'm denying myself, if I'm denying my compassion towards myself, I can only go so far in being compassionate as I look outward to another. And just last week, I was in a meditation, and Spirit wanted to, again, cautioning me against over self-sacrifice, as thinking that is the spiritual pinnacle. And Spirit said to me, that's actually not the apex of spiritual offering, to be so self-sacrificing. Because really, if we look around us and how everything offers itself to life here on this Mother Earth, it's when we see something in its vitality, in its full vitality, that it is able to offer make the most beautiful offering, the most beautiful flower, the most beautiful fruit. And so, you know, my mom has this withering apple tree in her backyard. I'm in her house, and she's 97 years old, and it's going to put out some apples this year. So it's a noble offering that this apple tree is going to make. And yet Spirit says, notice that your apex spiritual offering is going to come from your fullness and your own vitality, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So I just wanted to add those words. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Pat. That perspective is very, very valuable and important. Deborah, I remember seeing your hand next.
Thank you, Yanni. I just wanted to thank all of our amazing panelists today for their words of wisdom and for truly showing to us that compassion is at the heart of every religious tradition and the very core of our spirituality. Thank you. I just appreciate and love all of you so much. And it's so important in the world right now, which tends not to look toward religious leaders for wisdom, but to scientists and government leaders and even movie stars, that the religions of the world have so much to teach us and so much love to give. Thank you.
Amen to that, Deborah. I saw Dr. Merchant's hand, and I know I saw Salman yours, and we'll go with Dr. Merchant. We'll see if there are others. Audrey, I see you as well. Go ahead, Dr. Merchant, unmute.
Yes, thank you very much. It has been such an inspiration and learning and enlightenment. The golden thread, you know, that ran through, that passes through all of our lovely and very powerful presentations, inspiring each one of us, is our interdependence, how interconnected we are. And compassion truly is a life pattern. It's there in every spiritual tradition, and it should become our life pattern. And if this we remember, then it should be an element of our education, the little children, because children experience compassion the way their mothers raise them up. It's unfortunate that today in the world there are many parts where many children are deprived of that. And as a result, you have a host of societal problems. But then this virtue of compassion actually comes to us as we are feeding on our mother's milk. So to me, this golden thread of compassion is so powerfully depicted and put in action. We have seen, you know, multitudes of families, they came off their homes to help the poor and the needy in the times of COVID crisis. So many were uprooted, so many were without shelter, so many lost their jobs. And that spirit of altruism, which through the virtue of compassion was very powerfully depicted, experienced, internalized, and cherished, and it was universal. So I'm extremely grateful once again to all our distinguished panelists, to Ms. Irina, Mr. Yanni, and the World Unity Week, all of us, all of you who have made this very great effort to bring this small group of friends together. And each one, I wish to, from the core of my heart, express my deepest gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Merchant. Thank you very kindly. And Salman? You're on mute.
It has been such a salam and greetings. Thank you. This has been such a powerful couple of hours that, you know, really resonated growing up moments. And then, you know, how Mother Audrey, she talked about being like air, sun, and how they are being in providence. That is something really, you know, what Khaja Gharib Nawaz himself has asked us to be, like sun in generosity, like in grace, and like river in generosity, and like earth in hospitality. So these are such a real essentials of our everyday life, that even in each breath, these elements are a part of our daily life. So alhamdulillah, it's such an honor to be keep learning and keep serving, and as well as keep sharing. Because all this, what we have learned in last couple of years, it will surely resonate to the millions of people who will be in the next coming week or beyond that, who will be sharing and learning at the same time. And likewise here in Ajmer Sharif, now we have, of course, it's a pandemic situation. All the religious places are under lockdown, but still there are so many people who have been longing to make themselves their presence at these places. And hopefully when we open the doors again for welcoming people in terms of gratitude, and thank you for, you know, thank you, Yanni, Rina, Ben, and we really look forward for the next coming week, which we have been building up from last almost a couple. All of you.
Okay.
Thank you, and gratitude to all of you. And all the elders, I bow down to you. I give my regards and respect to all the elders here. Inshallah. Thank you.
Inshallah. Thank you. Audrey, if you'd like to make your comments, your final reflection.
So much. Yes, thank you. In my closing reflection, I'm feeling very uplifted and elevated that I have had the privilege to be with all of you today. And I'd like to share a little passage from the opening hand of thought approach to Zen, where Shati Deva said, "Gladly do I rejoice in the virtue that relieves the misery of all those in unfortunate states, and that places those with suffering in happiness. I rejoice in that gathering of virtue that is the cause for the awakening. I rejoice in the definite freedom of embodied creatures from the miseries of cyclic existence. I rejoice in the awakening of the Buddhas and also in the spiritual levels of their children. And with gladness, I rejoice in the ocean of virtue from developing an awakening mind that wishes all beings to be happy, as well as in the deeds that bring them benefit." And Shakyamuni Buddha said, "I had a loving mind, a mind wishing for others' welfare. Bodhisattvas are like that." In this sense, the thoughts, the speech, as well as the actions of a person who is practicing compassion is moving in the realm of love, kindness, and caring. And we have an opportunity every day that we live to be able to practice this here and now, for where we are is the holy ground, and we must awaken to the reality of who we are as spiritual beings and make good use of this opportunity while we have been given this sacred gift of life. As we practice every day, the seeming ordinariness of everyday life becomes magnificent in its beauty of divine presence that is ever with us as the loving, compassionate essence of our true being. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you very much. Diane, I see your hand.
Thank you, Yanni. And again, thank you so much to everyone on the panel. It's been so uplifting and inspiring and illuminating. As I think about my own throughout the day practice, what I realize is that in any given moment, I am either seeing the world through eyes of separation and fear and judgment, or I'm seeing the world through eyes of love and joining, understanding, forgiveness. That the state of separation itself is a state of suffering for myself and for anyone who is caught in that experience and view of the world. And so my practice is throughout the day to notice when I am caught in fear, caught in believing that separation is what's real. Recognizing that in those moments, I am increasing suffering for myself and everyone that I touch through my consciousness. And in those moments, making the choice to join again with the love that is already very much part of my true nature, my basic nature within me. And that once I have come back to love, whatever action is needed in that situation to be truly helpful and truly of service becomes clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diane. Very clear, yes. And anyone else like to make a comment? Okay. Well, it's been such a pleasure to be with all of you. And I've learned over the years that the only time I've really learned anything is if I'm in the presence of others, or maybe I've heard some words that open my heart, that deepen my sense of connection, that help me to remember that I'm not this little island on my own, but I am a part of this whole. And so is everyone, everything, every winged, every creepy crawly, those that fly, those that we don't even know of. And it's such, and this is the richness of this. Yes, we went over in time, but we were out of time. We were in the heart, not in the head. And we could begin to see the light within us just grow and deepen, and feel the hope that, yes, we are becoming that new evolutionary human that is way more than the sum of its parts and way more than any of us can imagine. And just one, I'm going to make a teeny little reflection here. This could go on for a long time, but I will make it short. As Dr. Bryant referenced in some of these events that he and I and others here helped plan seemingly decades ago or lifetimes ago, I remember I was in the middle of a setting in Maui, Hawaii, and I was in charge of the whole event, and everything was going wrong. There wasn't one thing going right. Even though we were in a beautiful lobby with hibiscus and papaya and warm air and all these beauties, and I am utterly stressed out. And this wonderful Buddhist monk comes up to me, grabs my hands. I'm 6'2", I'm over 2 meters tall. And he was at best a foot or more shorter than I, and grabbed me and looked at me straight in the eye, and he said, "You're not breathing." And I looked at him and I wanted to swat him away like a fly, because I had more important things to do than breathe. He said, "You don't understand. God this is a Buddhist, by the way, God gives you a certain number of breaths and you're using them all up now. And I love you. You must breathe. And he grabs me and he pulls me away and he pulls me into his room and he says, you're going to meditate with me. And I went, ugh. Can imagine. Then he throws me on the bed. He was very strong. I thought I was. He was stronger than I. And he sets me there and we meditate. And what does he teach me? The metta loving kindness meditation. And explains why he could see what was happening with me. Because for him, he recites, may all beings be free of suffering. May all beings be at peace. May I be free of suffering. May I be at peace. May you be free of suffering. May you be at peace. So he saw me suffering. And he just, it wasn't right. He wasn't. I didn't have to. And so he calmed me down. And then I came out and nothing had changed. Everything was a mess, but I wasn't anymore. It was like, okay, bring it on. I can come from that place of the heart and I can be present. So, so grateful for your presence, for the present that gives to each of us, the incredible gift that it is. I know Rena and I are both honored, and of course, Rena will have what she'd like to say now too, but thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Rena, I'll let you close this.
Thank you. I want to say it's 2:15 a.m. in Australia, and I've been awake since 6 o'clock yesterday. But I want to say that not that I'm just wide awake, my heart is so open. This has been such a pleasure and such an honor to not just be in the company of so much power and so much wisdom, but to also be able and to be given opportunity to create this space, to create this container of compassion, and to then be able to give it to the world. Because what greater gift can we give to the world right now but compassion? So thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
don't want,
Blessed.
we won't say goodbye. Just
Yes, till we meet again.
Thank
yes.
you.
How blessed are we?
Very thank you, Yanni.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.